We're happy to welcome everybody at the Positive Hack Days 2025. My name is Ekaterina and I'm the Security Vision Engineer. Today I want to talk about the safe development, how to build SOC, which is actually working. And this is the presentation about how a classic situation be upgraded and modified. But before moving to the problem, I've noticed one interesting paradox. The more often we introduce formal processes, the less efficient they become. In big organizations, big companies, you can see some requirements and policies, but vulnerabilities are still there. And it is becoming more and more obvious that the real security cannot be achieved by the certain number of audits. The real security should be built into a flow of the secure development. And let's look at the classical approach. We know that the classical approach is to do audit now every 6 months to get a report and check the box. But the product will not become safer because of that. And so right here, I'm convinced that we have to move from the one-off audits to an ongoing process. Why do I believe so? Because security, it's an event. It is not a property. Excuse me. It is not a property. I'm sorry. It's not an event. It's a property of development process, which may include dozens of processes and implement every step. But for some reason, vulnerabilities they still persist. They remain, and developers continue to ignore certain steps or trying to automate it just for the sake of having an automation. Now, why is this the case? Actually, secure development. Secure development is a process, like I said before, but for some reason we do not have a unified context. We cannot find a common language between the business, development and security. Why do we not understand each other very well? I think the core of the problem, so to speak, is the fundamental misunderstanding between security guys, business guys, and development guys. Because development is about speed. We are trying to write code, to issue a feature and to meet the deadline, basically. While business is focusing on profit and on client satisfaction. But security professionals, they would like to get control, to decrease and minimize risks in vulnerabilities in a certain product. So we do not have a common context. Everybody's working in their own vacuum field. So developer guys don't want to meet deadline and by missing risks. Businesses saying, hurry, we need to release as soon as possible, and we need to close this task as soon as possible and release the product. And right here, the security is taking the back seat. Because certain functional processes in the product, they are not as important. And security team is connecting to this process, but at the very last moment, and they're saying, okay, guys, this is not safe. We cannot continue development like that. And we have to understand of why this is the case, why this is happening, why we have a great methodology book, but they do not it doesn't work in practice. And in reality, oftentimes they connect by the end. I mean, the security guys connect at the very end of the process, and we remember that audit has to be taken, and we are uploading code into the audit platform, and then the InfoSec guys, they're looking at all of that and trying to put out fires, so to speak, and try to do this audit. And also, on top of that, we have to understand that this kind of approach is also overloading the development team. And so they are getting the whole bunch of papers, like 50 pages of a report, and look into this report. Okay, we need to fix about the 10 bugs, but I have a demo in a week. And of course, the reaction of development team will not be excited about that. One of the main instincts of an organization is to write all the checklists and have them available. But why even more detailed policies do not work? As a matter of fact, it's great to have policies in the company, but the policy is not a guarantee that the code will be secure. A developer may look into a document and to read all of those policies and click like yes or no, and after that to put a signature and say, okay, I've read it, but at the same time to miss a critical vulnerability. And then a month later, so to speak, the tester guys may identify some RCI through the unprocessed code, and then what do you do? Yes, we've had a formal rule in the company, it's all great, but the control is never equals to efficiency. The real security is not a set of boxes to be checked, but it's a part of a culture of development in the company. Your checklist should not be a formality, but a living and breathing document, helping you in development. And since this kind of approach is implemented usually at the later stages, I mean the security, it looks like it's sometimes it's more a problem to fix bugs for a business, for a company. And we understand that early security will actually give you a huge saving factor than what it would cost to a company. For example, we understand that a product is ready to be released onto the market. Money has been invested and marketing has been also initiated. And then the final security check will identify the critical hole. And then so then you have an emergency, like what should we do? But again, that would be very costly to fix this bug or a mistake at this stage. Oftentimes you have to rewrite a piece of a final code. And we understand that it is already in some modules, it all has been documented, it's all set. And the developers haven't received this kind of a report with critical vulnerability. They understand that, bummer, so many things have to be changed. And business is mad because release is slowing down. And for each week of just waiting time, they are losing money. While security team is getting mad in turn because they were not listened to, half a year back in time when they were warning everybody. And since the team feels that security is slowing down, they will try to resist the recommendations from the security team. And if the new process is breaking the habitual workflow, nobody's going to stick to that. Nobody's going to follow these rules. So when we try to enforce security through some kind of external process, the team may be very defiant and they may be rejecting that. For example, you are making developers before every commit to go through some kind of security checks, like, for example, filling up forms. Yes, maybe in the first couple of weeks they're going to fill up these forms, but eventually they will, they'll say, it is taking up too much time and we have to automate it somehow. Or they will not be uploading code very often because it's a barrier to overcome, and we are attempting to make it like a built-in feature. So, first of my conclusion is that security should not be an external check. It should become an internal support for the development process. And instead of just controllers, you need an assistant throughout the whole development journey. Then how can we change the perceived role of security team? It's like autosave. Autosave works like on the backdrop and when we're writing a text in a computer. And InfoSec should be also working in the same way. I mean, in a critical situation, it should be rescuing us from basically getting down. And instead of just popping up at the end of the development cycle, security features, they have to be accompanying developers all along. And in this time, there won't be a big resistance from the developers team. Well, we want to make like a pain-free security features. We've identified four principles. SDLC without any barriers. First is clarity. Second is clarity, automation, and invisibility. Well, if I look closer, without these four conditions or pillars, any security process may eventually morph into some sort of bureaucracy. And let's dive deep and consider each of those four pillars. Number one is clarity. All the steps for security, they have to be clear and understandable by the team. There is no magic, no too complicated instruction. It should be a transparent process, and all the outcomes of the checks and metrics, they're clear, they're making sense, and the team understands it. And everybody has understanding what am I expected to do in this, process, and what can I do for what they want from me, and or what would be the penalties, if I will fail to do this. Context, pillar number two. Security should be providing recommendations throughout development cycle. It is not like, okay, you don't do that, but they have to do it code-specific recommendation. What do I mean by that? Actually, if you do a code review, request pull, for example, in GitHub, and the team will do it in GitHub, and so all these checks have to be done right there in GitHub, and the results of these checks also should be in there, so the developer, by opening this, they can say, okay, automatic analysis has identified the problem in my code. And if you have gyro and you have made like a threat modeling, do not put it off until the report. Add it into a backlog. Let the security be embedded into the process when you're planning your development sprint. So automation, I guess it makes sense because manual processes cannot be scaled up, and everything that can be automated in your security checks should be automated. Invisibility, pillar number 4. I believe that this principle is sort of like flowing out from the previous one. I mean, ideal security has been embedded in such a way that it's almost invisible, but at the same time it's working almost like on a backdrop. Can you remember my example with autosave in your computer? Now, let's take a look at one more perceived barrier. I've already mentioned about that. It's a feedback. Like I said before about my GitHub example, we should be able to see that a vulnerability, should be tied up with a certain line of the code for developer to understand, okay, right here I need to fix up my code. And then they won't be this kind of dragging and nagging and the questions, I don't understand what the problem is, I don't see it, guys, you're saying my code is wrong, but what's wrong with it? So this will boost decrease the irritation, and developer team will feel that they are being helped, and security function will be their ally and not their fall. And by combining integration and quality feedback, we are bringing teams together. And instead of just fighting, they have one common cause they're striving for. One flow, one product, and one rhythm.
Встроены в процесс. Начинается самое интересное.
So the team is working, and right here, every person in the team is responsible for
Этот процесс, который они вместе
for this whole process they are doing together. So security function is not just a separate zone of responsibility among many others, and we understand that security is built into the development workflow.
этапе разработки.
And at each stage of the development, you can see security aspect. I mean, down to testing and, testing, security, it's all together, kind of bundled up together. So the common effect, less conflicts, higher speed, and common responsibility.
Звучит здорово, да?
Or share responsibility. Yes, it all sounds good, but right now, let's dream a little. What if we had such a system, maybe a tool, even or a platform,
Внедряться на
which would be able to get introduced at every stage of secure development.
Вы придумали новую фичу, и платформа уже
Let's say you come up with a new feature, and the platform
и предлагает какие-то
is building itself in, and it's suggesting a certain type of threats. And coming to the architecture, you're building some components of this architecture, of this system, and you're saying, okay, this microservice tells me
привилегий нарушен, да?
that the principle of minimum privileges has been violated.
Здесь все гораздо проще при коммите.
I mean,
Отчет, pull request.
and so you get your immediate report and something like automatic code review following up from the security team.
CI/CD этапе платформа, естественно,
With the CI/CD stage, of course, platform is building itself into conveyor. We've made a build, we're running tests and running scanners, and
и так далее.
we made codependencies analysis,
Критичных функций.
maybe some microphasing in critical functions.
Если что-то серьезное находится, сборка
And if something very serious has been found out, you get a market. It not only drops with a mistake, but then for this build, we create a task with a command, like what has to be fixed in this build.
на этапе релиза. Платформа
On the stage of release, the platform will attempt to formulate some secure configuration. And so that at the production stage, it will be with all the right, fine-tunes. And on the stage of support,
То есть у нас
here, the platform,
мы продолжаем
we're not done with deployment. We continue to do the support. And so the CM,
мониторинг уязвимостей, в том числе
CM monitoring of vulnerabilities, and
для отслеживания атак. И, в принципе,
CM for tracing up attacks, and for monitoring some new
при обновлении, да?
some new threats if you have them whenever you do the updates. So this support is not finished with the deployment, and the platform, even in operation, is going to provide suggestions. Of course, you cannot have 100% ideal platform, but we can always strive for the better.
Уже реализуемы сейчас, и, по сути,
Many elements which are being implemented right now already, and as a matter of fact,
нельзя.
we should not wait any longer. We have to introduce all these processes right now. Why? Because yesterday was too late.
Мир ускоряется,
And as we know,
безопасность
the world is accelerating, and we cannot afford to be lagging behind with our security features. After we identify new vulnerability, usually takes 24 hours for the attackers to build an exploit. And just imagine that there is no Sabaya next day,
скрипты.
and scripts are roaming within the network. And if your process of fixing vulnerability is going to be like a quarter or a month, you simply won't be able to catch up with this.
Что
Russian regulator
необходимо
saying that a critical vulnerability has to be dealt with, on the same day, literally. And so, in some organizations, this would be... In some industries, this is a very tough requirement, and that would make sense that when you are counting not even every day, but every hour, security team has to react momentarily. And shift security left, it's a new term. I mean, the security should be built in on the very early stages of the process. But I want to emphasize that shift to the left is not just a trend, it's basically unavoidable. It's a response to a real situation. If you are just dragging with security and only by the end of the cycle, it's too late. It should go hand in hand with the development, like I said, from the get-go, from the very beginning. So, for those who are still doubting this, I want to give you several examples. What happens when we have a real SDL? So, it's a crowd strike. One of the stories about the malfunctions with the update which affected 8.5 million devices. It's a producer of the cybersecurity company. You know, you would think that they are the ones who should know everybody, but according to the researchers, the problem happened in part because of the mistakes in development they did not identify at the testing stage. So Ariane 5 rocket, as a matter of fact, it's a quite interesting situation from the engineering field. It's a classic example. The repeat use of code without proper code analysis resulted in this rocket costing billions of euros, blew up only after 40 seconds of taking off. Yeah, that's a consequence. So what I want to say is that having no proper SDL, it's a ticking bomb. You may be lucky and nothing bad will happen, but sooner or later, you know, something's going to happen. Some bad thing's going to happen, and you'll have to spend much more effort and much more money than if what you had to spend preventively. So basically, the recipe is right here. Now, let's put it all together. SSDL, barrier-free SSDLC, and we'll identify what SSDL looks like in practice. So on the stage of an idea, when a new feature is being born, along with the functional requirements, we discuss also information requirements, and the team is making like a brainstorm and like what could be potential threats at this stage. For example, it's a feature related to private data, and right away we know that we need data protection, we need encryption, we need disconnection of access. Then architecture, when we do the threat modeling, and right here we need to also take into account that architects, along with the security guys, they can also be a part, the developers can also be a part of it. They can together to analyze where could be the potential vulnerabilities, and then free practices or safe practices of using tools. On the stage of CI/CD, each code push is a launching pipeline. In addition to unit testing, you have automatic security checks. And on the stage of deploy release, before you issue to production, the final touch, we're doing the rights, configuration and settings. Maybe short pen test. And on the stage of support, after the release, security is not ended with that. We do vulnerability management, we monitor more CVE, and the new libraries are being updated and upgraded. So, why business would need that? Well, first of all, you can have a rapid deployment, you have less conflicts throughout development, you have real risk mitigation, transparency, when the process like unified and streamlined, and people can see everything at every stage. So for a company, combination of this factor translates into competitive advantage. The faster release and no downtime, and the clients are happy. And within the company or the team, you are saving money and you have a reputational growth. This is what every business wants, right? I think that many of you are now thinking, okay, it sounds great, sounds wonderful, but, what do we do tomorrow? What do we have to do? It's hard to give specific recommendations because you can do with the baby steps, and these are the steps you can do starting tomorrow, moving towards SDLC without any barriers. Number one, you can implement at least one check into CI. If you do not have any checks, for example, the security checks, in Conveyor, in the build, you can select just one thing and connect it. Then give a feedback into a pull request. Organize such a process when the feedback for security matters is coming back to the developers, right where they are writing their code. And do the joint architecture session. Identify one big assignment of the project. Gather together and developers and architects if you have them, and also specialists. Information security team. Identify what are potential vulnerabilities that you can find in your system. Connect threats with assignments. Bring a couple of those threats from your report so that the security would be an integral part of the planning your sprint. Measure reaction, not a number. Introduce one or two indicators which will be reflective of the team's response to problems. Measure not how many problems you found, but how fast you've reacted to those problems which have been identified. And if we can sum up this whole approach in one statement, this is the formula of three items. That is, clarity plus flow and plus trust. In conclusion, I would like to say that when processes and requirements are clear, and people know what to do and how to do it, then security is not just all over the place, and the document turnover is not a problem. It is not a barrier in our operations, and security becomes like a real thing, not just on paper but in real life. And if we can have all those things, then the security development is working like a well-oiled machine. And this is the goal for the security, not to be a barrier, but to become the foundation on which we can accelerate our development. Thank you for your attention.
Если у вас есть какие-то вопросы?
If you have any questions, please go ahead. Yes, please. Microphone, please.
Вообще история очень сильно напоминает то, что творилось с тестированием.
Well, it reminded me what was happening with the testing situation, like a shift left, that you've mentioned. And probably my question is, should we have like a dedicated professional responsible for the security of an application? And if yes, what should be a correlation with the number of testers and with the number of developments would be great, not to overload the team and the company. I mean, not to have additional financial burden, but at the same time show very good financial or development results. You know what? I believe that, yes, indeed, we can identify like a dedicated professional, this information security person, and not to overload the team, but actually each and every one of us, they have our own role in the team. And information security person usually is guiding certain things, saying what should or could be done in the right way, and how to how to make this whole process really, really secure. And this is what it looked like. Probably we have a dedicated person for these purposes, and this is why the process look, they should guide the process. That's my answer. What do you think about the correlation between the number of people in the development and in information security? It's a difficult question, because, again, usually, speaking of developers, we have more developers in the team, and as it is the case in business, we have a lack of information security officers. But we have to plan our operations so that both architects and information security officers should be on the same page, so to speak. I mean, it does not matter how many people you will have in the team in terms of the InfoSec guys, but to what extent you'll be able to make this process barrier-free, and whether you'll be able to get rid of the red tape and bureaucracy in your company.
Всем спасибо.
That's it. Thank you.